This does look really intimidating when you first start with Gshade, but I promise you the more that you use it, it actually isn't as complicated as you may think it is. Hey everybody, it's Savvy the Simmer. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you all about Gshade and how to make your own Gshade preset. So this was a video request from my friend, and she really wanted to learn how to make her own Gshade preset. So in today's video, I figured I would just touch base on all of the main points that you would need to know in order to make your own Gshade preset. Now, this video might be a little bit complicated if you've never used it before, but I'm hoping that my tips will kind of give you guys an overall understanding of how to use it. So my first tip that I will give you guys is when you think of creating a Gshade preset, the best way that I can describe it as or compare it to is basically Lightroom. So when you think of a Lightroom preset when you're editing a photograph in Lightroom or in Photoshop, think of it as you are editing a preset in Lightroom, but instead you're editing your video game, if that makes sense, and like adding pretty effects to it. So basically you're making a preset for your video game. Hopefully that makes sense and you can understand my comparison. So I'm going to show you guys what this looks like with it off. So this is my Mango Heights Gshade preset. I have currently made several Gshade presets. This is with it back on, and then this is with it off. So as you can see, it just makes it nice and bright and really pretty and creamy. This is without the blurry effect on. It's the same preset, just changes that little background blur to it. If you're curious as to what the background blur effect or the bokeh effect is, that is the ADOF. So that is QUINT, DOF, so ADOF. And see, as we play around with it, when we turn it on and off, you can see it just adds a blurry effect, kind of like a camera lens if you were to take a photo of someone with that effect on and you're trying to have a pretty blurry background. So that's what that is. It's just really nice and pretty. And as you can see, it gets bigger and smaller as we get closer to the sim. The little bokeh effects just kind of blur and they get bigger and smaller, which is kind of cool. Let me show you guys where I would start off at. So for example, if I wanted to make a new Gshade preset, I'm just going to name it example preset. And then what I'm going to do is going to hit enter on my keyboard. Once I do that, it'll create a preset and then we can start it from scratch. But if I wanted to copy these settings here, I would just click this right here and hit copy current preset, and then I could rename it example preset and then just start from scratch, but have these additional preset settings underneath the preset, or shaders if that's what you want to call them. Sometimes it's interchangeable, but these shader settings. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to start from scratch. But for example, it would be nice to do that if I have this main one here called Mango Heights, and I haven't found a way to find an undo button in the Gshade panel. So for example, like if I wanted to, I'm not going to move this because I really like my settings, but if I was to move this back, it doesn't have an undo button that I have found. So I haven't been able to actually go in here and like, if I mess with a bunch of settings within here, I can't like go back and hit undo, undo, undo and get it back to where it was originally. So it might be nice for you to copy a current preset and then rename it whatever, so you can have like a version 2 if you'd like. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so now we are on our example preset, which is a blank preset. As we can see here, it is completely brand new. We have no settings ticked off in here. And just a little heads up, let's just say I wanted to add a few settings in here. Obviously, I'm not going to use these because they are like pretty crazy looking, but we had these shaders in the preset that we wanted to use. Something I like to do is hit this active to top, so it takes the ones that you have in your actual preset that makes the preset. They're active and they're at the very top, so it's easy to get to if you wanted to tweak them. Just a little tip for you guys. A lot of times your Gshade panel, this is the panel that I'm talking about, this panel, when I say Gshade panel, you can actually move this. You can make it bigger by clicking on the side here. I wouldn't suggest making it obviously this big, but you can make it as small as you want. Sometimes it'd be nice to have it this small, but you do want to see the settings that you're maneuvering with and stuff. I like to make it about this big so I have my reload button and everything like that, and I can see everything. And then there also is this save preset automatically button, which I always like to be checked. But as you can see here, we have these shaders checked off, right? But we can't see our settings, that panel right here. So what you're going to do to make sure that you can always see your setting panel underneath it is to check this, make sure that it's unchecked. So this is performance mode. You're going to turn that off in order to actually adjust your preset settings, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. But if you ever want this to go away, I don't really know why you would. Maybe it helps your like game performance. I don't really notice a difference in mine, but just a heads up, just make sure that's turned off so you're able to adjust your settings. My sim is in the Sims nude. She's in this game, completely bare bones. So we are at Mt.Komorebi. I felt like it was pretty nice to be here for this because it's such a pretty day. It's summertime and it's a nice background for creating a preset, and it'll give us a nice canvas to work off of. So anyways, getting back to our sim here, I always like to make sure I'm in a good place with scenery so I'm able to check my preset when I am making one, so I'm able to look at my different settings and make sure the nature, or aka like the scenery, is looking good with the colors that I choose and like all the settings that I do. So anyways, pulling this back up, I'm just going to go over a couple of shaders in here that are really important to me and that I typically always use in my presets that make my game look really nice. So first and foremost, I want to go over MXAO. This is a really popular setting that most people like to have in their game. As you can see, when I'm turning MXAO on and off, the settings around my sim's face is getting shadowy. It's basically adds shadows to your sims and the surrounding areas of your sim. So as you can see here, when I'm moving the sample radius, it just basically adds the radius of the shadows on the sim. So you can kind of play with this however you want. I kind of like to use it around this setting here, just like this number around 1. So just to add a little bit to it right there. The normal bias, I don't normally mess with either. I just kind of keep that on a lower setting. The ambient amount, I try to be careful with, because if you go really far with it, it sometimes can make your Sims faces look a little funky, so just keep an eye out on that. I do really like this setting a lot. I like to use it often because it adds a lot of depth to your Sim. As you can see, like the shadows look really nice around my Sim's face, but the fine AO scale and the coarse AO intensity are really intense, as in their name. As you can see, it adds in a lot of shadow to my Sim. And then the fine one too. Just be careful when you use these ones. It does make your Sim's teeth sometimes gray, and we don't want that for our Sims, obviously. So as we can see here, when we're in tab mode, my Sim has these like weird shadows on her, and I'm not really a big fan of that, clearly. So what you're gonna have to do is just play around with that and adjust it. And it definitely has us do something with our MXAO settings. So I would just, maybe move the normal bias out a little bit, and then just adjust your coarse settings too, and just play around with it and just make sure the shadows on your sim don't look too much. It's nice to have some on there, but you don't want it to be like overpowering where it looks kind of funky. So I think that's kind of a good place. Obviously she has her hair down, so it's gonna add some shadows over here. So I think it looks pretty nice. I like that overall, but if that's something that you wanted to like play around with, definitely do that. And okay, so our next thing I'm gonna look at, so we already have MXAO built up. So let's go ahead and put the active to the top. Another one I want to show you is the sharpen. I like to use the adaptive sharpen. This one here adds a lot of crispiness to your game. That's kind of like how I like to think of it as. So as we can see here, the sharpening strength, it gets really, really intense. Like it gets really high. So if you don't want to have your strengthened super high, I like to kind of keep it right in this section here on 50. You can even go lower if you want, or a little bit higher. Just depends on, again, how your game performs, because when you make a Gshade preset, you want to make sure it's something that's going to work well with your game. These are also some other settings in here with the sharpen. I don't really mess with these too much. It does add in some more, obviously, sharpen to it, but I just mainly mess with this right here, and you can always play with it, but that's what I like to do for mine. All of the presets that I have that I've created, I've made Cozy Days, Cozy Nights, and then also my Mango Heights. And every time I make those, I like to do MXAO and then the sharpen. And then another popular shader that I like to use is called the TONEMAP. It just adds a lot of nice colors to your game. So right now, obviously this is very, very bright. We are going to go ahead and fix that because it's so bright. We don't want to have settings that bright. So within the TONEMAP, we have gamma, we have exposure, and saturation. So saturation is obviously going to make it more colorful, and then our exposure we can turn down. So this is more of a setting if someone really wants to brighten up their game. For me, I like to have my game more muted, the colors be muted so it's not harsh on my eyes. But I really like this specifically because honestly, you can make a Gshade preset out of these 3 settings right here. You can do the TONEMAP, MXAO, and then your sharpen. And like right now, this is a really nice preset. Like look at this. nice and beautiful and bright, but at the same time too, it's not super, overbearing, but it's nice for those of you that want like a simple preset and that's not going to be too heavy on your game. Even if I took MXAO off like right now, there's also something called QUINT, which is QMXAO. So this is also a lighter setting versus your true MXAO. So these are the settings right here for it, right in this section here. So you can go like this, and this just adds some more shadows to it, but it doesn't give your MXAO super heaviness that it does. The simple radius just is basically the radius of your subject of how much is going to be on it. Hopefully that makes sense. You also have your ambient amount as well. So again, this just adds more depth to it. I like to really use that a lot, but just be mindful of it because it can sometimes, again, make your Sims look a little gray. I've noticed that when I use it, it can sometimes make my Sims teeth look gray. I don't know if you guys can kind of see that it's adding it in here. If her like mouth was wider, we probably would be able to see it more, but just be mindful of that this does add more shadows to your Sims faces. So just try to be a little mindful of that, just a heads up. But I like this setting here because it does give your Sim that depth. See, this is off and this is on. So it just adds some more shadows to their faces, which is really nice. But it also, it's not so heavy on someone's computer that wouldn't really be able to hold a really heavy preset. So I like using that one. Something else to be really mindful of too when you are making a Gshade preset is your Sims skin tones. This may be something that not everyone really thinks about, but I always try to when I'm making a Gshade preset, especially for one that I'm going to release to the public. I want to make sure that it looks nice. So as we can see here, this is with nothing on, and then this is with it on. This does kind of make my Sim a little bit lighter than her normal skin tone. And you can go into the Gshade panel and add some more settings that will help bring back her color a little bit more. I think there's it's something called like color selection, and we'll get into that in the future, but I just want to make sure you guys are aware that certain settings can make your Sims look a little washed out, so just be mindful. But that's the gamma. So as you can see here, the gamma, I like to kind of think of this as like when you're editing a photo, like let's just say Lightroom or like on your phone, this reminds me of shadows. So you're kind of blowing out the shadows of your photo, aka like our video game here. So if you kind of bring the gamma back down, it does make her skin tone more closer to the original color. See, this is with it off and this is with it back on. So this one is probably the closest with it still being like the actual Gshade changing and everything like that. Just keep in mind. And then we do have like a bleach setting here, which I don't normally play with. It just makes your surrounding like white settings really, really bright and oversaturated. I don't really like messing with that too much. You can make it, really bright if you want to. Totally up to you. This is my actual current Gshade preset that I like to use for myself. As you can see here, it definitely makes my game more muted, more toned down. I'm a fan of having my game more muted and having the colors a little more toned down, like with the greens they're like really bright in the normal game. So I don't have the best eyes in the world and I wear glasses most of the time or contacts, so I need to have something that's going to protect my eyes. I love The Sims 4, but the actual game itself is so bright and the UI like hurts my eyes sometimes, so I like having it toned down more often. And then some people love to have their game bright. I also have this Gshade preset here that I also have made. It's called Mango Heights. I was showing that to you guys earlier, and as we can see, it makes the UI like nice and bright. But some people need, they prefer to have their game to be really bright and really saturated, and I think that's beautiful. But Gshade presets are really to each their own, to be honest with you. It is all about the player's preference and how they like to view their game. Like, this is such a nice preset, especially for those of you that like bright and airy and super saturated. I think it looks really nice. It's beautiful, but for my eyes, I need something more like the one I currently use that's like this. And sometimes I'll go in and tweak it to make it a little bit brighter. I'll like turn my brightness up on my actual game laptop, but for the most part I like to have this because it's better in my eyes. So I'll show you guys what I like to do for that. So within your tone map, the gamma is a really good way to make your game more toned down. So that's a really nice setting to use. And just going back to our example so we can continue building it, I'm going to go to the tone map feature that we have here and just bring that gamma down so you can see it kind of brings it a little bit better and makes the skin tone a little bit more accurate. And then we can do exposure. It's hard to explain this actual one, but it just dims it. So I really like the exposure shader within the tone map, because as you can see here, this is going to be really bright and hurts my eyeballs. And then if we bring this down, even to like right here to 348, it just gives it a nice dimmer look. And you can go even further. Obviously we don't want to go too dark because then we won't be able to see, but just having it at a good point is really, really nice. So anyways, that is a nice way to like build that. I'm gonna put MXAO back on, but as you can see, like these shadows are even more intense because we have the QUINT on. Hopefully I'm saying that right, but if we can move it around and just still keep some nice shadows. So if you want to use MXAO and the QUINT together, you can. It's totally up to you. It's just gonna add more shadows and make it even more intense. But let's go to another major one that I like to use is ADOF. So ADOF is our blurry effect. As we can see here, I just turned it on for the very first time with our new preset, and look how pretty this is. We're gonna go into tab mode. I'm gonna close so we could take a screenshot right now and it would be so pretty, but I'm gonna explain the settings for you guys because I know a lot of you don't really know how to use this, and there's a lot to this one. This is really important for your autofocus center. You want to have your center for your sim. These settings right here are pretty good for the most part, but you can always move this around if you want. It will change the focal setting to a different place, so you kind of just have to play around with that. This is the bokeh intensity. So bokeh is the blurry effect and like the little circles. So let's just say right here we have the shape verticals. I normally keep that still on 6. So if you want to add, so you can keep just the blurry effect, but if you wanted to add like the blurry circles, the bokeh, that's what that's called, what you would do is you would go to bokeh intensity like this. Then you would go to bokeh maximal blur size, and this is where you would actually get the size of your bokeh. So let me just close this so you can see, like, as we can see here, that is, they're like really, really bright, okay? And they're really big. And this is the intensity too of the bokeh circles. So you can make it really bright or, you know, have it like at a decent brightness, whatever you want to do, you can do whatever you want. You can also change the shape of them as well, and your bokeh shape roundness section go like this. I like to keep them as circles personally, that's just me. And then you can do the shape aspect, so this just kind of makes it more of like a camera, or you can make them like this. You can change so much in this, which is really, really cool. So it's really fun to play with. I think that making Gshade presets are so much fun. But you can change the quality as well right here, the shape quality, so you can change them to be smaller. Can make it more kind of grainy looking like that. Obviously most people are going to want it to be like this, and so I leave mine more around 18. When you are making your Gshade presets, pay attention to the numbers that you're setting stuff to, so you can kind of get an idea as to like what levels you need to keep stuff at. I'm going to make the circles smaller so we can go more into depth. You do have your hyperfocal depth distance. So what this does, it's going to add the distance between you and your center focus, which my center focus is my sim, right? So basically the distance between the background and my sim and the blurriness is what you want to change. So if you want the distance to be, you know, like you want everything to be blurry behind them, you're going to get that higher. If you want there to be a little bit of a less blurriness between you and your subject, you would just keep that a little bit lower. So hopefully that makes sense. And then your far blur curve is also important. So as we can see, if we go higher with the setting, it's going to disappear. If you want the blurriness in the background to be really blurry and then you want your sim to be in focus, you would just make sure that you keep it at a lower level. Everything's still blurry if we look. Obviously we have that sim in the very far background, but if we wanted to blur her out, we could just kind of like go like that, and you would just play around with stuff if you want to, or you could just even like get her to go away and wait to take the picture. But I'm glad she's there because it's kind of helpful for it. Another thing you want to keep in mind too is your autofocus speed adjustment. This might be a little overwhelming to watch, but I'm going to have my sim walk around so you guys can see the adjustment. See, she's walking right now, but we do need to be a little bit closer to her because of our focal, whatever we have it set it to. And as we can see, it's bouncing around, right? It's moving all around, and we don't really want that, right? So let's just say I'm trying to make a scene from our YouTube video, and most people like to use this feature. So you have the bokeh in the background, and I want to have my sim walk in the background, but I want it to be blurry while they're walking in tab mode. So what you're going to do is you're going to hit tab, and then you're just going to center your sim. Obviously, you're going to pull back a little bit so we can get this pretty, you know, background here, and it'll be blurry in the background. Typically I would take the plumb bob off, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. But as we can see here, my sim is walking and it's blurry in the background, and it's nice and pretty, and it's not moving too much. So how I fix this is I put my autofocus speed adjustment all the way down to 50. And so let's just say I want to have this background here. I want it to be nice and blurry when she walks by. What you do is you put your game in tab mode. Then I will take my mouse and I will just move around. Again, I'm sorry if it's kind of like blurry. But then as you can see here, it is blurry in the background, and I'll just make sure my sim is in focus. And if I'm trying to make a scene right now for YouTube, she will walk by, and then as we can see, my blurriness isn't moving all crazy. It looks really nice when she walks by. So just another example, just so you guys can see. So now my sim is in focus and she's walking, and the blurriness looks really nice and it's not jumping around. So that's a little example for you. If we want to take the bokeh off and we just wanted a pretty blurry background, you could just take this right here and then just play around with it. So also we have this blur width, and that just makes the intensity of the blurriness. So if you wanted it to be like super blurry but still kind of have a little bit of the background of the trees, you can just mess with those settings right there. So hopefully that makes sense. So again, putting my sim back in focus, see, she is walking around and it's nice and blurry, but we're not seeing any jumping around, which is seriously so nice. And oops, and it looks really nice too when she walks around. Like, it looks very natural. It looks like we literally have a lens on our sim that we're like following with like a camera lens, or you know, like a video camera lens, and it's just so nice. Like, it's really pretty. And so yeah, that is my main tutorial settings for the ADOF key, which is a big, really important one. People love it because you get this beautiful blurriness, as we can see here. So you can either choose to have it just blurry in the background or have those bokeh circles that are my favorite. So that is totally up to you. And again, you would just use the blur quality and then the bokeh sections in here. Those are like my main big settings. Now that we've gone over a few of my favorite ones that are really important to look at, I do want to show you guys another setting, which is also this other setting here, which is selective color, and then we have the other one here, which is depth cues. This one right here, the depth cues, might be a little harsh on people's computers. It's not personally on mine because I do have a gaming PC, so I'm not sure how it is on yours, but again, it just kind of adds, as we can see here, it's just adding a lot of the like depth that we like to see in our Sims faces and different stuff. When it comes to, I'm going to take the bokeh off so you guys can see. I'm just going to show you like an example. Over here we have these rocks that are in here. So this is on. This is with our shaders off, and then this is with it on. So basically what the depth cue does, it just adds obviously more shadows and more depth to the items in our game. Depth cue, so this is off and on, and you can just make it really tense if you want to, or light, just depends however you want to use it. I personally love it. I think it adds a lot of depth to my game, but also doesn't slow down my computer. And if I'm feeling like it's too much shadows, I'll even take MXAO off and then the QUINT, and I feel like it still adds like good depth to my game. So this is off and this is on. So as you can see, like there's still like, you know, some nice depth, but I still do love my QUINT and MXAO. Even if you didn't want to use MXAO and it was too hard on a computer, I definitely like the QUINT. See, like this is off and on. It just adds so much to it. Let's go ahead and get to like our color. Here is a way to change the colors of your game. This selective color, I don't even know how to say all this, but it's like prod whatever. So these are some main ones that you want to look at. So they're like color gradients and temperature and selective color. I personally like to look at this one here and then this one right here, which is the selective color. This one is going to change the different colors. So again, it's like Lightroom and how you have greens. You can change the colors of the greens, different hues within it. So let's just say we're going to look at our greens. So this is going to add, see, as we can see right here, let's just take a look at a tree for an example. So for example, I want to look at this green tree right here, and I want to like change the color of it. I want it to be not so like wildly green, like so deep. So as we can see, even like right in here, it's changing it, it's making it more warm, taking like the magenta color out. So right over here we have some pinks, and that's changing it. So this is like a red hue and it just changes the color. So this is more like intense green. This kind of gives it more of a like earthy green, if that makes sense. You can change it to be more like fall looking. I actually like this color specifically because I feel like it's not so like in your face green. You can even make it more muted like that if you like. Also, I think it's fun to like play with different presets for different worlds too. I think some worlds look better and than others. And then we have blues too. So we'll find an area with some blue. So we have this river right here, which is perfect. So if we're gonna test the blues, we can go over here. So as we can see, this is really, really blue, kind of like retro-ish color, which I like. And this is more of like purpley blue. Change the intensity of the blue. See, this makes it more, this is kind of close to my Mango Heights blue color that I changed. It's more like retro blue in my mind, and this is more of like a deep indigo blue, kind of purpley. Again, you can just play with it and see what you like. But yeah, Gshade just changes so much. So again, I'm not going to go through all the colors in here, but you can kind of just get an idea of what you can do. It's really nice, especially if you're not someone that wants to play with like really bright colors and you want to kind of like tone stuff. But as you can see, now my sim looks a little yellow. You just have to be mindful of when you do change colors to like how it's going to affect your sim. So as you just saw, I moved this around here. It makes my sim like look green. Okay, it's like we have like the Hulk in here. But if we go back here, it's kind of getting closer to like a good skin tone color. But you also don't want your Sims to look red either. I feel like that's a good medium right there, and it is very close to her skin tone. It might be like a little more rich, a little more vibrant, but it still looks nice on hers. Overall, obviously I'm not building this preset. It still looks really nice for an example one. It's definitely different, which is really nice. So I really like the Magic Bloom here. This one just kind of gives it an extra pop of brightness. So as you can see, I don't have it on and then I have it on. So see what I mean? Like it just kind of brightens up your sim a little bit. Our Magic Bloom is off and now it's on, and it just kind of gives it like a little bit of a pop. But just be mindful of when you do use the Magic Bloom, it does make your UI really bright, and again, it hurts my eyes, but it might be nice for some people that really want like a little extra. Like I think this looks good, but it just kind of blows out the shadows a little bit. And you can play with these different settings like the exposure. You can make it like extra bright. Then you have saturation right here, which again, self-explanatory, adds to the saturation. And then you can do something called dirt intensity in this area here. It just adds like little pretty, kind of like just clear bokeh. But it's just basically adding like a pretty effect. So I think it might be nice if you wanted to use that for, let's just say, you know, some build screenshots and stuff. So that is another one I really like to use. So those are pretty much it for my main ones. I'm just gonna look through and see what else I have in here. The next one I do want to show you guys is called FILMPASS. Also, I wanted to mention that you can actually search different shaders in here. So let's just say I'm gonna look up FILMPASS. So there's FILMPASS right here, and as we can see, it changes the game pretty fast. So don't be intimidated by this. I know it looks like a little funky. FILMPASS is another one that is really popular among presets, and this one can be a little harder to finagle with. As we can see here, it really changes things a lot, and I think this one can kind of end up looking a little funky if you don't know how to use it. But see, we have the fade here, and it just changes the colors, which is nice. This is going to be more like warm, and this is going to be a little more red. So this is like, see how my sim changes and she's more pink. So this is more of like a neutral. I do like to use FILMPASS, but you have to be mindful of your sim's skin tones, because you don't want your sims to like look red and like funky. Obviously that's no fun. And then we do have the base gamma here. So base gamma again is like gamma, think of like shadows. So it's just brightening your shadows here, and I feel like that looks really nice. You can also do this here, which is your gamma G, and it's just changing again, making it more like neutral, kind of like adds your greens. And then here obviously we're making our sim like look kind of pink, but just be mindful of that. I like to keep that in the center so it's more natural looking on my sim. And then I really like this gamma B. It makes your sim look a little more warm. So this is with it off and this is on. Like look at that difference. It just adds some beautiful vibrance to our game, but it's not overpowering either. And you can always go in and, you know, just change We also have a bleach setting here, and that is where you see where it looks very contrasty. So just think of the bleach setting as contrast. So see, it's making it more more flat and not making it so contrasty like and heavy. This is already a really nice preset. Obviously our UI is really bright. If you want to fix the brightness, what you're going to do, see how bright this contrast is? You're just going to bring that contrast down. And as we can see already, it already is looking a little bit better. And if that kind of changed it too much for you, you can always just go back in and change some other settings too. See, I feel like this looks really nice, and you can just play around with your gammas and then your contrast to not make this so bright. And I feel like that made such a big difference. For example, I have my preset on, our example one that we're playing with right now, and then I turn it off, and look how bright this area is with the difference. Like, it's such a nice difference not having it so bright. That is just a little example for you guys. Let's just say I wanted to download this. So in order to find your Gshade presets, what you're going to do is go to Program Files, and then go to your EA Games, go to Sims 4, go to Game, then go to your bin folder, then go to your Gshade preset, go to Custom, and then this is where all of your Gshade presets basically live. Let's just say I wanted to share my Gshade preset that we just did together, which is our example preset. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my preset and I'm going to hit copy. I normally put this on my desktop. You can just click on your desktop folder and hit paste, or you can put it in a new folder wherever you want. I normally just put them on my desktop, and then you can just, you know, rename it or whatever, and then you're able to have a copy of it that you can share to other people as well. So it just kind of makes things easier, and it saves all of your settings too. I'm hoping that answered your questions and that gave you guys a good beginner's tutorial into making your own Gshade preset. I really hope it helped you a lot. If you guys are interested in checking out my Gshade presets, I do have them on my Patreon. They're all free now. You can support me if you'd like to send me a donation. Feel free to do so. I also do make loading screens too. If you do have any more questions about making your own Gshade preset, feel free to comment down below. More than happy to help. I'm definitely not a tech expert, but I will do the best that I can, because I know it's really nice to have your game look really beautiful. It just makes your game honestly feel like a brand new game. And I know there's nothing like having your game look beautiful and pretty without adding a bunch of mods to it. So sometimes I do get the question too that if Gshade and Reshade are compatible, and you can actually go into Gshade and you can convert a Reshade preset into Gshade. You are able to do that, just a heads up. Anyways, guys, I hope this really helped you. I know when I first started making my own presets, I wish I would have had some guidance and someone to help me too. So I hope this was really helpful for you. I hope you guys are having a really great day whenever you guys watch this, and feel free to comment down below if you need any help. I hope this video made you guys feel a little bit cozier. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned a little bit. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.